I went overseas with those guys. My first job outside the wire with them was into a place in Shwali Kot in southern Afghanistan. It hadn't been, there was a Dutch outpost there about 6 years before, but no one had been in there since then. They wanted to, it was supposed to be a 24 to 36 hour mission. And all we were going in there to do was just, an intelligence job, like a recon job, just to see what we could stir up, just clear the compounds, interview the people, do the fingerprinting, do all that stuff, see what we could find, because no one had been in there. We insert on the first night, and as we're inserting, obviously, 0 Dark 100, the company sergeant major, and he's in a backward position, gets off, and there's spotters, and they start engaging him and the helos. So he gets the first kill. And as you know, the CSM, like the E9 of the unit, shouldn't be getting amongst it like that. So he's like, we got 2 KO up here, or 1 KO, whatever it was. And so we're like, okay, what's going on here? No more engagements. First light happens. Clearance starts clearing through the compounds. I'm in an overwatch position with the heavy weapons team at the time. We had some SFMGs up there. I was obviously working some ISR, and troops in contact ring out. So this pretty much happened all first day. We're supposed to extract that night. Later on, the hierarchy come back to us and say, look, we're getting a heap of intelligence here. Can you stay in? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we can push it out to another, We had sort of 36 hours worth of water, because as you know, you go on target, you starve pretty much for the time you're on there, and as long as you've got water to sort of keep you going, and you can push yourself pretty hard for that. So that went on for 5 days, but day 3, I got to get my first drop in country, and it was just outside danger close. It was actually, I think it was US Hornets, but I don't think they were Super Hornets. I think they were just standard Hornets. So that would have been Marine Corps, I think. Put the first 500 pounder in to the cave, like on top of the hill where they were. It wasn't a cave complex, but a covered position. Goes low order, doesn't blow up. I'm like, all right, immediate reattack, send it in, boom, doesn't blow up. And then it goes like low order, you watch it burn out. Anyway, by that stage, the firing has stopped, lost PID. Day 4 happens. The clearance is going north of this stage. They hit them again from that position. They give me a B1 bomber on. By this stage, it's pretty much on DC, danger close. So I just said, give me 3 500 pounders from the B1 onto that position. So I go 3 500 pounders, blew that up. Day 5, finally get extracted. We're getting shot up. Got A10s and 64s, hitting targets as we've got the 247s extracting us. But it wasn't until I did that job and I came off target, and the boys are like, just shake them hand, high five, and they're going, that's awesome. That's way better than our last JTAC who was attached to us. Like, he wasn't an Air Force guy. He was just an army guy. And so that first job really broke down the barrier. And because I got into, I got shot at we got shot up pretty hard. They tried to assault our overwatch position at one stage. But it wasn't until that happened, and I did that under duress, that it really broke down the barriers. And then, guys were saying, oh, come to the gym with us, come do this, do that. Normally it was like, whilst I was friends with them, I was still like the tag along, like the little brother scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't until that sort of job there, and I sort of proved myself under duress.
Yeah, and everybody's happy to have the JTAC around when stuff's starting to happen like that. That's cool. You got to bring in Bone. The B1, drop in a few 500 pounders. That's legit, man. Especially on your first couple days in country. You've been at this point. You've been to Iraq you said you spent almost 2 years in Iraq. You've been to Indonesia. How was Afghanistan different than these other places you've been, especially like Iraq, which was also a combat zone?
Yeah, it was different in the fact of the mission, where we're on a offensive mission. So the Australian Special Operations were in there to create freedom of action for our mentoring task force that was rebuilding. So we were going hitting the high value targets, mostly IED makers. Later on down the track, we teamed up with the Drug Enforcement Administration, targeting the chemists and the drug labs. But on that trip, it's purely kinetic. Like, you're not going there providing security for a restructure element, or I'm not driving point A to point B, providing, being a bodyguard for someone. We planned, through intelligence, we planned out missions to take it to the Taliban. So it was different in that regard. As far as the overall countryside, some of the mountains, like in Afghanistan, are absolutely beautiful, especially when it's coming out of winter or in that spring season where it's just not dry and dusty as summer. But it truly is a prehistoric place. Like once you get out of Kandahar or Kabul, like the bigger cities, it's like you go back in time. We hit places in Western Helmand later on in my second tour, and they thought, they didn't think we were Russians, but they didn't know who we were. They didn't even know there was a conflict going on. Mm-hmm. So it truly is. It's like going back in time.
It's I've tried to explain that to people also. It's like, dude, it's a weird mix of people living in mud huts and mud structures. I mean, they make their own mud and create their own bricks and then like build these mud structures with them, mixed with the occasional cell phone usage, because when they have electricity, sometimes the cell phone towers work. So sometimes you see people that have like a data plan on their cell phone. So it's like a weird mix of like, no electricity, a very agrarian lifestyle, hand to mouth kind of deal, but the occasional glimpse of modern technology, and it's just crazy, right?
They had more apps on their phones, so like you said, you can go to this prehistoric area where their bathroom is the creek out the back. They're eating off the ground type scenario. They're sitting on the ground, and then they've got this smartphone, and they're showing me apps on there. Obviously it's in Pashto or Dari or something like that, but they've got these apps in there, and they're showing like they're more tech savvy in that regards than I was. Mm-hmm. Yet they live in a prehistoric age.
It's crazy. It's such a weird environment, and it's like it's so tribal also. It's like because they don't have that technology, because they're not as well connected to not just the world, but even like the city next to them or whatever. It's all very tribal, like this is my village. We'll protect our village, and we don't like outsiders. I mean, there's no way for an outsider to show up in one of these villages without these guys knowing about it.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. Like we'd hit this compound, blow in, clear it. Well, we had a series of compounds where later on. When we're chasing drug labs or chasing the chemists. And obviously the chemist was the target that you wanted, but normally they'd escape with their security detachment if they heard, because just through the spotter network, they knew we were coming. Mm-hmm. And then our partner force would sit there and just point up at the hills and go, Taliban. And we'd go look up there, and I'd be looking up there. He wouldn't have binoculars or anything, just go Taliban. He didn't have a radio or anything with him. They just knew stuff was up there. So we go, all right. Clearance force would go up there, and funnily enough, there was Taliban. So
yeah, it's such a crazy place. It's interesting. How many deployments did you end up doing over there?
I did the two. I did 2010 and then 2012. And then when I was due to go back, Australia pulled out their rotation. I was on the next rotation over, and that's when Australia said, no, we're not sending any more special operations task groups over. But funnily enough, we had Marines up, because we worked obviously with the Marine Air Wing. We had I think they were Anglicos. Well, one was an officer and one was like an enlisted. So that they were embedded with us up there in Tarankout, up in Uruzgan province.